Welcome to the Spark Live webinar series, one component of our Spark Knowledge Mobilization Program. Spark is Children's Healthcare Canada's shared platform for advocacy, research, and knowledge. Spark Live is where we gather each week to curate, convene, and showcase excellence and innovation from across the child and youth healthcare community. Our goal is to spark conversation, ideas, and action. Children's Healthcare Canada would like to thank our funding partners for their ongoing contributions that support all of our programs and activities, including this Spark Live bi-weekly webinar series. There are two options to join in on the live conversation. Questions and comments for our panel or presenters can be typed into the question box, or comments that you want to share with the audience can be typed into the chat box visible to all of our attendees. For those of you on Twitter, tag @ChildHealthCan on any webinar-related tweets or use the hashtag SparkLive. And to keep up to date on all of Children's Healthcare Canada's webinars and other activities, be sure to sign up for our weekly Spark News e-bulletin by visiting our website at childhealthcan.ca. Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of Children's Healthcare Canada's Spark Live webinar series. I'm Paula Robeson, your host for the next hour. I'll begin by acknowledging that Children's Healthcare Canada operates on the traditional and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to Ottawa. Today, Ottawa is home to Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. Children's Healthcare Canada is committed to working towards forging new and deepening existing relationships that include First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, and is grateful for the opportunity to share this land as we work to measurably improve children's health outcomes from coast to coast to coast. We're delighted to speak today with Pat Longmuir and Jennifer Graham to bring you Enabling Active Play for Children with Medical Conditions or Disabilities, resources for families and clinical settings. We would like to introduce our speakers for today. Pat Longmuir is a senior scientist in the Healthy Active Living and Obesity Research Group at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario's Research Institute and a professor in the Faculty of Medicine at the University of Ottawa. Dr. Longmuir's research interests are the promotion of physical activity to children with medical conditions and disabilities and the use of physical activity to prevent and or treat morbidity. Her undergraduate, master's, and PhD theses examined the impact of interventions to increase physical activity among children with heart defects or cystic fibrosis. Her postdoctoral fellowship was a community health promotion initiative targeting parents of young children. Dr. Longmuir has published more than 70 papers and 6 book chapters in peer-reviewed literature and has delivered 180 scholarly conference presentations and more than 80 invited keynote addresses. Jennifer Graham graduated from Carleton University with a Bachelor of Science honors in biology and psychology. During her career, she's held various positions in insurance and pharmaceutical industries and has been involved with the Canadian Congenital Heart Alliance since 2006, joining the board in 2013. She's the current president. Jennifer lives with congenital heart disease. We'll also hear some pre-recorded remarks from parent partner Lisa Crack. Lisa and her daughter have participated in several physical activity research studies to encourage active play for children with medical conditions. It's now my pleasure to pass the mic to Pat.
So thank you for joining us this morning for our presentation, and thank you, Paula, for that lovely introduction. As Paula mentioned, I'm joined today by Jennifer Graham, the president of the Canadian Congenital Heart Alliance, and Lisa Crack, a parent of one of our study participants. So the Canadian guidelines for children's healthy 24-hour day look at 4 types of healthy lifestyle behaviors. They recommend children get at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity each day, several hours of light activity, 8 to 11 hours of sleep per night, depending on the child's age, and less than 2 hours of screen time each day. And we know from Statistics Canada that most Canadian children are not meeting these guidelines. Very few meet the screen time guideline of less than 2 hours a day. Most meet the sleep guidelines, but only 1/3 of children meet the physical activity recommendation of 60 minutes a day. We also know that boys are more active than girls and that the activity levels decline as children get older. So what do we know about children with medical conditions and disabilities? We know that they're even less active. So the bar that's circled in red here is the data from this study of children who do not have medical conditions or disabilities, so healthy children. And they are compared to the bar next door, which is children with obesity, but no other medical conditions. And those are compared to these two bars, which are children with diabetes and juvenile arthritis. And as you can see, children with obesity are less active than their healthy peers, and children with medical conditions like diabetes and juvenile arthritis are even less active. Similarly, this is a study that we did a couple of decades ago now, but the results are still very pertinent today. We asked children to self-report their physical activity, and it's important to note that whenever you ask people to self-report how active they are, they overestimate their activity. Research tells us by 40 to 80%. But despite that tendency to over-report their physical activity, you can see that about half of the children with cerebral palsy reported that they had a sedentary lifestyle. About 1/3 of the children with arthritis and kidney disease also reported that they had a sedentary lifestyle, and about 40% of children with visual impairment. So even though we know they were over-reporting their physical activity, they were still reporting very sedentary lifestyles. When we look more in depth at what is missing in terms of children's involvement in a healthy lifestyle, active lifestyle, we looked at children from a whole variety of different diagnostic groups. You can see across the bottom here the different clinics that they were treated in our hospital. And we measured their compliance with physical competence guidelines, which is, do they have the motor skills, fitness, and movement capacity for physical activity. And then we also looked at their compliance with daily behavior guidelines. Were they active? And although their motivation was actually similar to their peers without disabilities or medical conditions, only 33% were meeting the daily behavior guidelines, compared to 52% have matched controls without any health conditions, and only 10% were meeting the physical competence guidelines, compared to 33% of the matched controls. So we know across, and that's similar across all diagnostic groups, that they have lower levels of motor skill and fitness, even though they're motivated to participate in physical activity. So when we had these findings, we decided to investigate further the reasons why people were struggling to participate in physical activity. So we talked to 11 children and 22 parents, children who had congenital heart disease, as well as adults and recreation, cardiology, and mental health professionals. Not surprisingly, each group saw different barriers when they were asked the question about the child's physical activity. But the common thread between all of them was that communication is critical. Families felt that they didn't always understand the information that they got from their healthcare providers, or didn't know how to apply it in daily life. Recreation professionals felt that they often didn't get accurate information from the families, and couldn't, for privacy reasons, couldn't contact the cardiology professionals. And the cardiology professionals felt that often their messages were not being accurately received by parents, what they were trying to convey. And so we set out to try and create a toolkit of resources that would help with this communication network. And the project was funded by CIHR as a multi-site randomized controlled trial. And the purpose was to evaluate the impact of systematic physical activity counseling with our toolkit resources on children with congenital heart disease as part of their clinical care. So the participants in the study were 5 to 17 years of age with either a moderate or severe CHD diagnosis. We excluded children who had recently had surgery or other treatments, and anyone who had a syndrome or other diagnosis that we knew would restrict their physical activity participation. And the study ran here at CHEO in Ottawa, at the Children's Hospital of Eastern Ontario, as well as the Children's Hospital at the London Health Sciences Centre in Ontario, and Stollery Children's Hospital in Edmonton, Alberta. Now, all of the study participants did the pre and post assessments. So they did the pre-assessments at their clinic visit, the regularly scheduled clinic visit. They didn't have to come for an extra visit for the study. And then they did a post-test 6 months later for the questionnaires that were involved in the study. And all of the participants wore a pedometer for 1 week each month for the 6 months of the study. In addition to that, those who were randomized to receive the intervention had a physical activity counseling session with the Toolbox resources during the regular clinic visit that was delivered by a doctor or nurse. And they also had the availability support of a kinesiologist to contact as needed during the 6 months if they had questions. The kinesiologist also initiated contact with them if the child's monthly pedometer step counts were below the desired level. So this is Lisa, who wasn't able to join us in person today, but we had a conversation, and I'd like her to share her opinions on being in our study.
Okay, so thanks for today. Can you start off by telling us why you wanted to participate in the physical activity research study?
Well, I think it was very important to me to participate in this study because I really find that in today's society, as we're getting busier and busier and technology is taking over so much of our kids' activities and time, that I really wanted to, to stress to my children the importance of, exercise and their health benefits and being outside and going for a ride on your bike or your scooter or even just to walk around the neighborhood. We privileged enough to live close to the Ottawa River, and just to take a walk down there or, out in the swing set in the backyard. And I really think that that's a very relevant point in our society that we need to keep stressing to kids. The outside is an incredible place to be. Exercise is fabulous. And it's really important for our health, and particularly children with congenital heart disease. That's even more important that they are out and exercise. Exercising and keeping themselves very healthy.
Great. And what did your family like or do in the study when you were involved in the study? What was it like for your family?
I think, we really looked forward to it, coming into CHEO to see everything going on and the interaction. Georgia always really loved the activities and bouncing the ball or hopping on one foot or throwing things like that. I think she got a really kick out of it, especially we'd go quite a few times. She never minded wearing the pedometer. She thought that was pretty cool. No, I think it was just something to look forward to because it was part of something exciting that you feel you're contributing in some way to helping things move forward and new technology and new information so we really enjoyed it. It was never a trial or never an issue at all.
That's great. And what would you say your family has learned or gained from being in this study?
I think it was one of the first times my older children would have seen the fact that, in order to move forward, you have to give back a little bit, and participating in these studies is how we move things along and make changes ahead. And one of my daughters has gone on, she's doing her master's in neuroscience and running a study now. And I think they just see that this is how changes come about. This is how we, discover things and make inferences and move things progressively along. So I think they found that very interesting. And especially when the study was out and published, even though they didn't understand it, they still thought it was neat that we'd had a bit of a part in it.
And what advice would you give to researchers, clinicians, or families about involving families in research?
Well, I really think it's the way to go. I really think at CHEO they seem to have a very friendly, warm, inviting environment. That, you know, it makes people feel like they want to come, they want to participate. They make it very exciting for the kids, and it's inviting. It's, you know, I think it's something that people need to do to help themselves out, as well as help other people that may come along down the road. It's a little thing that people can do to just help other people without taking a huge portion of their time and effort. And I really think it's very important that people give that back to CHEO and for everything that they've done for us.
So thanks very much, Lisa, for sharing your perspectives with us. The family perspective on our research is always very important to us. So more specific details about the intervention that we did during the clinic visit. There were posters put up in the clinic to promote and encourage patients and families to ask questions about physical activity if they had concerns or information that they felt that they needed. And then the doctor or nurse provided 5 key messages to answer the questions: what does a healthy active day look like? How active are my friends? Sports and physical education are not as active as we always think. Outdoor time is most active, and what can I do given my current health status? After those messages were delivered, the families were asked if they had any questions, and they were given the referral to the kinesiologist if they wanted to follow up. And so this resource from Statistics Canada was what we gave the families to help answer the first 2 questions of what does a healthy active day look like and how active are my friends. So it talks about the 60 minutes of physical activity daily, and that only 33% of Canadian children actually achieve that recommendation. It also talks about the fact that active parents tend to have more active kids, that time outdoors increases your activity, and that active lessons, leagues, and team sports provide about 10 minutes of activity for every hour of participation. We also use this resource from the Public Health Agency of Canada that specifically provides tips to help get kids active. And it also talks about the health benefits that children receive from physical activity. And this was really important to us because as adults, we often think about fitness, preventing heart disease and obesity and diabetes, things like that, that are kind of long-term objectives from a healthy, active lifestyle. But what people often don't recognize is that children get very specific benefits in childhood. They don't have to wait for the long-term benefits. So it improves their self-esteem, it improves their academic grades, it increases their ability to concentrate, it enables healthy growth and development, gives them stronger bones and better balance and flexibility, and most importantly, opportunities for socialization with their peers. This is one of the Toolkit resources that we created to answer the questions about sports and physical education being less active and outdoor time being most active. So you can see that the activity levels increase when you go outdoors compared to indoors, and that we also provided tips on this resource for how to dress for outdoor time so that families could be active and enjoy being active in all seasons and all types of weather. And this is the final resource that was in the main 5 key messages, which was specific to each child. Be strong, be healthy, be active. So the front page provided general tips and information about how to be active in winter weather, to wear sunscreen, to stay hydrated, using talking to monitor how hard you're working, wearing helmets, and starting slowly and warming up. But the second page, or the back of this page, had specific recommendations, checkboxes that the healthcare professional would fill out for that particular child. So they would indicate by checking off the boxes the types of activity that your child was allowed to do. And this is different from often the messages that families get from their clinicians is the restrictions in physical activity, but they don't necessarily get information on what is appropriate for the child. And so in terms of activities that make you breathe faster, the healthcare professional could indicate, only light activities that don't usually make you breathe hard, or moderate activities that sometimes make you breathe hard, like volleyball or tap or jazz dance, or very vigorous activities that definitely make you breathe hard and get your heart beating really fast, or all three. And the bottom half of the page was similar checkboxes for activities that require you to push or pull with your muscles. So some children can do light activities where you don't need to push very hard and won't hold your breath. Others are able to do moderate activities that make you push so hard that sometimes you hold your breath, and others can do vigorous static activities that usually make you hold your breath while you're pushing. We also had additional resources that were not given to all children, but could be given to children where it was relevant to their medical conditions. So this is a resource that we had for children who have to keep their heart rate lower than normal. So the same thing, it has checkboxes on the front where the healthcare professional can provide specifics about what heart rate they should maintain. There's information on how to measure your heart rate and tips for keeping your heart rate low during physical activity. This is another supplementary resource that we created for children who have restrictions in terms of body contact. Either they're on medication that makes them prone to bleeding, or they have implanted pacemakers or other devices that need to be protected. And again, the front page helps children to understand how to make decisions about what activities are appropriate or not appropriate for them. And then the back page has checkboxes where the healthcare provider indicates for that child that whether they can enjoy activities that usually have little or no body contact, like cross-country running or cross-country skiing or bocce or dance, or whether they can also do activities which do not have deliberate body contact but may involve some inadvertent body contact. So the results of our study are shown here. The orange bars are participants who received the intervention, and the blue bars are the control participants who did the assessments but did not receive the intervention. And as you can see, the intervention participants maintained the same physical activity level for the whole 6 months. The green line is 12,000 steps, and that's considered equivalent to the 60 minutes a day of recommended physical activity. So our intervention participants were achieving or exceeding that recommended level throughout the 6 months of the study. The control participants were also at the 12,000 steps per day initially, but their physical activity declined during the study. And we often see this in physical activity research, where just knowing that you're enrolled in a physical activity, people tend to be more attentive to their physical activity, and their physical activity initially increases higher than it otherwise would be. But over time, it decreases back down to a more typical level. And the level of around 10,500 or 11,000 steps is what we typically see is reported in other literature for children with congenital heart disease. So our control participants were decreasing down to where we would expect them to be. We also measured the adequacy and predilection for physical activity by questionnaire among the participants, and you can see that the intervention participants increased their feelings of adequacy and predilection for physical activity over the course of the 6-month study, whereas the control group decreased. So the bottom line is confidence matters. You and your child need to be confident about the physical activity appropriate for your child's health. And I really emphasize the your child part. Often healthcare providers will say, oh, the parents are bubble wrapping the child, but I have talked to a lot of parents who are literally tearing their hair out because they can't get their child to participate in physical activity because the child is confident about what is appropriate for their health. So both parent and child need to be confident. They need to be confident conveying that information to other people in the child's world, teachers, daycare workers, the parents of your child's friends, swimming instructors, etc. Because the children with heart disease and other medical conditions and disabilities can get messages that physical activity is not appropriate from a lot of different sources in the community because people aren't aware of what's appropriate. The second point is build activity into daily life from the youngest age. So children get unique benefits like peer socialization, healthy growth, and cognitive development that happen right in childhood. So start with tummy time when they're infants and build physical activity to every day so that they get that as a habit from the youngest age. And ask questions and ask for help. Doctors and nurses get focused on the tests and treatment that are a priority for them and that they're trained to do, and they often are less comfortable talking about physical activity or feel they don't have enough resources to support physical activity questions, so they often don't initiate those conversations. So don't hesitate to ask for explanations and ask questions about the information you're given to make sure that it's realistic for your own lifestyle. Okay. And now I will turn it over to Jennifer.
Great, thank you, Pat. Thank you for all that information and for all the work done on this project. It's been fabulous and great results, and so that's really thrilling to see. So thank you all. I'm Jennifer. I'm from the Canadian Congenital Heart Alliance, and next slide, please. And this is just a little bit about our organization. So our mission is to advocate and enrich people living with CHD of all ages through awareness, education, research, and support. And we really want to build a dedicated CHD community, fostering compassion, empowerment, and collaboration. So those of you who maybe haven't heard of us, our organization, we've been around since 2004. So we're actually celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. We're a registered charity, and we're the only organization in Canada that dedicated solely to supporting those living with CHD. We work closely with both pediatric and adult medical professionals, as I said, to improve resources, raise awareness, and the need for lifelong expert care. And yeah, we really appreciate these types of partnerships that we have. So these are our 4 pillars. These are just some of the resources that we have, just an example under each of these pillars. Next. So this is just a visualization to kind of put CHD in perspective. So heart defects are actually the #1 birth defect in the world and affecting 1 in 100 babies born. So comparing to a lot of other illnesses that are much more well known, it just helps to highlight that the really lack of awareness there is out there for congenital heart disease and the confusion that happens between acquired and other types of heart disease and congenital, which is really quite different. And so yeah, it just so we work really hard to try and build that awareness and increase that awareness. Next slide. These are just, again, highlighting some of our resources for Heart Week and CHD Awareness Week in February. We have our Canada Lit Red campaign, lighting landmarks across Canada lit red in CHD awareness. Our education include our children's book about Penelope going for her heart checkup, as well as advocacy resources for parents and children with CHD. And then also too, we have a virtual camp. No problem. This is a study that we did back in 2012 and then again repeated in 2014. And it showed the #1 issue that both children and parents, as well as adults, struggled with was exercise and sports. And it seems to be a lifetime struggle. It really is. There's a lot of confusion and fear around this particular topic, and again, messaging with restrictions, that sort of thing. So that's kind of what started us down this pathway and into helping to improve information and resources for the exercise. So our first project with CHIO was the Fearless Physical Activity project, and that was a project from 2016 to 18, where we launched about 48 activity sessions all across the province of Ontario, in all 4 regions, and they were family friendly, so the entire family could come, and it was helping to remove barriers like fear and anxiety, and also to help educate on what active and activities are. There's a lot of messaging out there about running marathons means you're physically active, and a lot of us can't do that. So it's really great to have these kind of resources, and they all live on our website. And that's one of the great things that came out of the project, is we have all these activities available on our website for families and for kids too, and even adults to look at things that they are able to do, and it helps them to get to their activity level that is so important for health. Next. And then, as Pat mentioned, our next, coming very shortly, will be the new resources from the Toolkit, and Sherry gave you a preview of them, and we're really excited because I think that's one of the big things that we were excited about this project was a lot of parents just really wanted something that they could take to their school, their child's school, or to coaches, and show them exactly what they can and they're able to do, because again, schools and teachers and coaches are very fearful of what might happen, or if whether they can do these things. And I know growing up, one of the big things that we always got asked was I going to have a heart attack? And that's not that type of heart disease. But again, it's the confusion. So having this toolkit and having these resources that parents can take, even to their friend, family, friends, that sort of thing, about what their child is able to do, and any restrictions, I think is going to be really helpful. And so we're really excited to be able to launch these, and available to anyone across Canada with CHD. And so we're really excited. And yeah, this is just our information about our website and our social media. And we'd love to have you connect with us and be part of the community. Thank you very much, Arlias.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. And I would just say, I would add for the to wrap up the presentation and open up the questions, before we open up the questions, that although the Toolkit resources were developed specifically and the research study was done specifically within the congenital heart disease population, we have had a lot of feedback from parents and families about how they have used the same resources for children with other medical conditions and disabilities. And so we will have all of the resources specific to congenital heart disease available on the CCHA website. They're just in final translation, so that we have both English and French versions available to launch at the same time. So within the next month, they will be available on the CCHA website for the cardiac specific resources. But CHIO will also be making available on our website. If you go to chio.on.ca, you'll see right on the front page, there's a resources button for parents and families. And if you click that, then you can choose the healthy active living resources, and the resources will all be there as well, but not cardiac specific. So the wording on them is generic and can be suitable for all children with all medical conditions or disabilities, but they are the resources that we have produced during the study. The 2 resources that I mentioned that were developed by Statistics Canada and the Public Health Agency of Canada are also freely available on the website of those organizations, and they're available in English and French right now. So thank you, everybody, and we're happy to have their discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Here are a few questions. Let's see. Jenna says, hi, Pat. This work is fabulous. What did you do to measure quality of life and motivation? And did you consider measuring participation?
Thanks for a great question, Jenna. We did measure quality of life using the PeatsQL. To measure motivation or adequacy and predilection, we used the Children's Self-Perceived Adequacy and Predilection for Physical Activity Scale, which is a huge long name, goes by ZAPPA, CSAPPA. So it's a standardized questionnaire. We did consider measuring participation, asking about measuring participation, but we really felt that we wanted to, because we know that there's this bias in how people report their physical activity, we actually wanted to rely on the pedometer measurements instead to measure how many steps the kids were actually taking each day. We felt that was a better marker of their daily activity behavior, and it would also capture any activity that they were doing that was not specifically sport participation or physical activity participation. So, things like walking to school or taking the garbage out or, helping with chores around the house wouldn't necessarily get captured by a physical activity participation questionnaire, but it is valuable physical activity that contributes to a healthy lifestyle. So we wanted to capture that as well.
Thank you so much. From a knowledge mobilization point of view, what are the benefits from your perspective on the toolkits and resources that you've put together for patients, families, and other community members like teachers and coaches, other healthcare providers?
Well, as Jennifer mentioned, we've had really positive feedback from patients and families. And the reason that we actually extended the tools to be suitable across all disabilities and medical conditions was based on feedback from our Parent Advisory Council. I was sharing with them the study results because they had helped us to develop the tools in the first place. And when I did that, I had a lot of parents whose children didn't have congenital heart disease, but who said, can I get my hands on this? Because I think it would be really important. It's a really great way, particularly the tool where you have the check boxes of what the child is allowed to do. I think that seems to be the one that parents and families really grab onto as a way to convey to teachers and school boards and daycare workers and everybody in the child's life, it's okay for my child. Yes, my child has a medical condition, but here is what their doctor says it's okay, the kinds of things it's okay for them to do. And that seems to help families to communicate that information more effectively.
A very helpful tool. From the perspective of adapting some of the activities and how can they be adapted to suit the abilities of the child as well as the medical and other health related restrictions necessary? What have you found to be helpful?
Well, as I said, we do have a variety of tools that are, so the basic tool messages include the aerobic and static activities, so things that make you breathe hard and things that make you push and pull. Those probably cover a lot of the medical restrictions that people have, but we do have the other ones for children who have to keep their heart rate low, for instance, or I showed you the body contact one as well. The body contact could be the cardiac patients that we talked about, but it's also been used by children or parents of children who have hemophilia, parents of children with brittle bone disease, parents of children with juvenile arthritis who don't want to be hit in affected joints. So they seem to be, the wording on the generic ones, which will be on the CHIO website, is such that it can be adapted and personalized to a wide variety of conditions.
Brilliant. What's the next steps in your research?
Well, for this research, we're trying to get the information out about the tools. So we really appreciate Children's Healthcare Canada's cooperation in allowing us to do this webinar from that perspective. We're working with CCHA, obviously, as well as other partners through the CHEO website and through the other institutions that we're collaborating to disseminate information to patients and families through the various patient-family networks that follow us and are connected with our organizations. But we're also specifically in terms of the cardiac piece, we're working with the Canadian Pediatric Cardiology Association to make sure that our posters about the resources and study are available in all of the pediatric cardiology clinics across Canada, and that all of the pediatric cardiologists in Canada have the resources at the ready within their clinic to be able to use them if they wish. But we also equally think it's important for families to have it, because I've had a lot of families say to me, I want to take this resource to my doctor and have them fill out the check boxes it would be very helpful from a parent perspective. That helps me to initiate the conversation and convey to the doctor what it is that I need. So getting it out to both the parents and families as well as the clinicians is kind of the focus for this project at the moment. So
thank you so much. There have been a number of really positive comments that have also come in. Thank you very much for the resources that you shared. We'll try and also profile them in an upcoming Spark News e-bulletin. Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for your feedback. And it's the end of our time together today. Thanks, Pat, Jennifer, and Lisa for sharing your time and expertise with us. And thank you to our audience members for joining in and asking your questions. We know how busy everyone is right now. We hope you depart with some practical knowledge to bring back to your organization. In the weeks and months to come, we'll be hosting the following offerings. On June 12th, tune in for our webinar, Navigating EDIT-CP, Early Detection and Intervention Toolkit for Cerebral Palsy for family care physicians, rehab specialists, and caregivers. We have coming up our Beyond Band-Aids campaign. Stay tuned next week. Over the past 2 years, we've been working with experts, patient partners, decision makers, and researchers to define a vision for right-sized children's healthcare systems and priorities and parameters to help us achieve that goal. On May 6th, we'll launch the new report, Beyond Band-Aids, Delivery of Future Fit for Kids, based on that work. We'll with concrete recommendations and calls to action for everyone involved in children's healthcare ecosystems. Keep an eye on your inbox and on our website for more details. Accompanying that launch of the Beyond Band-Aids campaign, we'll be hosting Julia Hamingsberg and Dr. Catherine Smart in conversation of a podcast titled Beyond Band-Aids, Collective Action to Right-Size Children's Healthcare Systems. Tune in May 6th online or on your preferred podcast system. And finally, save the date for Children's Healthcare Canada's 2024 annual conference. We're heading to St. John's, Newfoundland on October 20th to 22nd. This conference will be co-hosted with us by the Janeway Children's Hospital Foundation. It's always great if you can watch live, as your questions and comments really enrich the discussion. But if you can't, the recordings of these sessions are made available after the fact on our website. Thanks for joining us today. Thanks to our wonderful speakers for this presentation, and hopefully we'll see many of you back here soon. Bye, everyone.